Welcome to the show. Welcome to Friday. A Friday going into a footballless weekend for us here in South Bend and in Notre Dame land. We've got something I hope that helps fill the void for you, though, a little bit. I think we've only talked since we rebooted this show and started doing this. We have talked recruiting on this show just once. And Bryan is being very silent right now. We've got Bryan Driskell with us. Of course, Irish Breakdown subscribers and frequenters know who Bryan Driskell is. And again, just the second time that he's been on this show since we came back to radio. How are you today, Mr. Driscoll?
I'm great. I mean, you say football this weekend. I know one Kansas alum that's going to be keyed into a border war game this weekend. I'm very much looking forward to that. But yeah,
That's
no
right.
Notre Dame football this weekend.
It's interesting in-house here because the guy who comes in after me to produce South Bend Cubs baseball, he's sits right where I'm sitting right now. He is a Missouri guy, and he actually, I don't know if he's going to be here today because a couple of weeks ago he was sitting in the producer's booth over there, and he was like all busy and doing all this stuff. And I get done with the show, and he'd been trying to find tickets to the Border War game, which is in Columbia, of course, tomorrow.
I would love to go to that game. One of these
would be fun.
I wish they would bring it back and make it a normal rivalry. I miss that one.
I know,
one of my favorite Big 12 rivalries.
Yeah,
in the couple years they were both good, like 05.
Yeah.
That
back in the Todd Reesing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Chase Daniels, Todd Reesing, and that whole era where they were both kind of at their peak, I guess.
It's got a great name. It's definitely got a great name, the Border War,
I know.
Bedlam. I love names, like the game. Well, that's boring. Give me something.
And I mean, I don't want to bore anyone with the history of the whole thing, but it literally goes back to the Civil War days when the two states, Missouri was a slave state, and there were all these border raids revolving around Kansas was going to be a free state, and all this different stuff. And it literally the name of it goes back to that, when it was literally the Civil War going on. So there's long held hostilities between Kansas and Missouri back in that area. So they haven't played it in 14 years, so it's kind of exciting that we're going to get to see it again. And Kansas has been pretty good the last couple of years, so we'll see who can come out on top.
Well, speaking of Kansas, we're going to talk some recruiting tonight.
Yes, we are.
Recruit this class from the state of Kansas. So
tight end. That's right. Mr. Premer, right? Is that how you say his last name?
I believe so. I've heard Premer. I've heard Premer. We'd say Premer.
Yes. All right. So, well, coming up in a little bit, I've actually got an interview with Notre Dame women's basketball player Leah Macy, the freshman who injured her knee at the end of her high school season. She's here right now, so I'll be talking to her, get an update on her health and all kinds of good stuff with her. But let's just get into some Notre Dame football recruiting stuff with Bryan. And I kind of wanted to, this, you and I were talking when we were talking about, well, what can we talk about for recruiting? This is kind of an odd year because in terms of the current class, the 2026 class, it's pretty much wrapped up. They wrapped it up this summer. They've got 27 commitments. So how does this 2026 stack up to the first three classes that Marcus Freeman had?
I think they've, in a lot of ways, sort of steadily raised the bar every year. And I think what they did with this 2026 class is they completely set a new standard for Notre Dame recruiting. And they've kind of really hit on all the things that you look for in a class. Like, what makes a great recruiting class, Sean? Well, it varies from year to year. Sometimes it's, okay, did you have great depth? You needed depth. Did you get great depth? Well, they got great depth in this class. You mentioned 27 commits, pretty balanced offensively and defensively. There's a few more offensive commits in this class than defensive commits, but they needed more on offense than they needed on defense. Okay, cool. Depth, check. Did you kind of hit all your needs? Okay, this position was a need, that position was a need. I know we'll talk about a couple of those big needs. Check. There's no position right now you're like, well, I would have liked one more guy there to meet a need, but you know what? So check that. And then the final one, if you're talking about a true gap closing class, a class that's like saying, okay, now you're recruiting with the big boys. Are you landing elite talent? And are you landing elite talent at various positions? So you're not just another 5-star offensive lineman and tight end. but find a receiver worth a you-know-what and forever, and you're not recruiting. But they're getting impact players at tight end, two impact players at running back in this class, impact receivers, impact defensive ends. Maybe the best defensive line class they've signed since 2011. You might even go back further if you want to look at the whole line. Certainly the best defensive end class since 2011. Impact DBs might have the best secondary class in the country. I think that's what ultimately raises the bar with this class, Sean, is you're landing elite talent, but you're landing it. I don't know that they have an elite offensive lineman in this class. You have a couple guys with elite upside. This class is built around studs on the D line, studs at receiver, studs at running back, studs in the secondary, studs at tight end. And I think that's what makes this class so much different compared to others is the bar's been raised to that degree to where now we're picking apart a 4-star quarterback because he's not thrown for the yards that some people like. You know, if people are like questioning Noah Grubbs, your class is pretty darn good. And I think that's what kind of has things pretty exciting because I think Noah Grubbs is a pretty good football player.
When you mentioned two of the bigger needs, and they've been two needs for a while now, and, a lot of people getting restless. Are they ever going to get, legit receivers? Are they ever going to get defensive linemen? How ultimately do you think that this class shakes out to address those two specific needs?
We'll start with defense, Sean, because I think that might be the best position group in this class. It's arguable because the running back group is elite, the receiver class is excellent, the secondary class is excellent, but this defensive line class that Al Washington put together is special. And what I love about it is, like, we've seen past really good D-line classes. Like in 2016, they signed a class that had 4 NFL players in it. And you got Julian Okwara, Dalen Hayes, Adetokunbo Ogundeji, and Khalid Kareem all got drafted in the NFL. That when you're landing 4 NFL draft picks in one class, but here's the problem. What did those 4 guys all play? Defensive end. They couldn't play together. What makes this class special, in my opinion, Sean, is it has every bit the upside and talent of that group, but you have 2 defensive ends, a nose tackle, and a 3 technique in this class. Ebenezer Utade and Rodney Dunham are as good of a defensive end class as Notre Dame signed as a 1-2 punch since that 2016 class with Hayes and Okwara and Kareem and Ogundeji. But you also landed Tiki Hola. Notre Dame fans are like, we need to get more size on the D-line. All right, cool. How about a 6'4", 305-pound kid from Texas who just turned 16? That's Tiki Hola. Heck of a player. And then it's like, all right, but you want to get that really athletic, twitchy pass rusher type. All right, cool. You're looking for the next Riley Mills? Just got him. His name's Elijah Golden. 6'4", 275, had 29 tackles for loss as a junior. Very talented player. Coached by former Notre Dame tight end Jared Clark, by the way, in high school at Sarasota, Cardinal Mooney in Sarasota. So, I think that's where it starts. Like, that's as good of a defensive line class as you're going to get. Now it's like, okay, Al Washington, you set a new bar. Now they're going to hold you to that every year. But it's certainly a great way to go. And then at receiver, Sean, that was a little bit more of a twisted road to get there. But at the end of the day, they ended up putting a great class together, closing late in the process by getting Caden Finley, Devin Fitzgerald, and obviously to go with Bubba Frazier and Dylan Faison. And, of course, you get Braden Robinson at the very end of it. That's the class you need. You have a dynamic kind of do-it-all type of guy in Caden Finley. You've got really fast, twitchy, after-the-catch guys in Braden Robinson and Bubba Frazier. You've got a possession type of receiver in Devin Fitzgerald. And then you've got a guy in Dylan Faison who can kind of do a little bit of everything. So excellent class that kind of gave them, talent they need, filled depth, and landed impact players. And 2 of those receivers are sons of former NFL stars.
Exactly.
Or players, right? You have Jermichael Finley and then obviously Larry Fitzgerald. So the DNA's there. But I think they needed big years at both positions, and Al Washington and Mike Brown both needed kind of some people to get off their backs a little bit from a recruiting standpoint, and they both hit home runs. I would say that Mike Brown hit a game-tying home run in the bottom of the 9th. There's still a little bit of work to be done. Al Washington hit a walk-off grand slam. We're in the middle of a pennant. That's what Al Washington did. He hit the bottom of the 9th, Game 7 World Series walk-off grand slam. That's how big this defensive line class is.
Well, and I just keep, because the knock on Al Washington, since he's been here, is can he recruit these kind of guys? And he just wasn't able, to close with some of these guys. Is it a coincidence that Chad Bowden is gone? And, what do you think of all that?
I mean, to a degree,
or is it just like this cycle just happened to work out that way?
Well, to a degree, I think there's something to, Al Washington kind of taking on a greater burden of D-line recruiting. A lot of the recruiting was left to Chad, and now it's like, okay, let me go find my guys and recruit my guys. I also think some of the knock on Al Washington was due more to the first class and the issues with Justin Scott, things like that. Since then, they've landed Bryce Young, Boubacar Traore, Armel Mukum, Chris Burt. So they've done well, but it's like, can you really have that true grand slam home run, inside and out type of class? That was kind of the question on him, and he's done it. I think it's partly that, but let's not also pretend like the success they're having on the field hasn't factored into that as well. I mean, he's had back-to-back second, All-American defensive tackles. You're having guys getting drafted in the NFL. Your team just went 14-2 and played for a championship. I think those things factor in as well. And I also think Al Washington, as the longer he's been at Notre Dame, has a better sense of how to properly find Notre Dame fits. You don't just walk in the door knowing what works at Notre Dame. It takes some time to understand the kids that thrive here, and then to say, okay, now let me go get those guys. And I think NIL helps. Notre Dame is very competitive in the NIL world. So I think they've all factored in. But at the end of the day, Al Washington's got to evaluate well, and he's got to recruit well. And he did that. And now it's about, okay, let's move forward. But the good news is, Sean, if you look at the visit list of 27 defensive linemen that visited in the spring and summer, it's like a who's who of top prospects in 2027. So it's not just this, okay, well, you did well here, but what about next year? They got to close. But the early foundation that he's laid, with getting big time players on campus, including, there's a big time top 100 player from Chicago, Braden Parks. He camped at Notre Dame this summer. They're doing great with him. So I think they're doing a great job of also saying, do it again. Because look, it's great that he did it in 26, but it's the standard at Notre Dame is at every position is, but can you stack those classes on top of each other year after year? And that's what Coach Washington's working hard to do. And so far, so good. But this 2026 class certainly raised the bar.
Talking Notre Dame football recruiting with Bryan Driskell from IrishBreakdown.com. Secondary needed a big boost. How did they do there in this 26 class?
Yeah, it's a big class, Sean, literally and figurative. Actually, just literally.
A little bit of everybody, right?
You got 5 guys in the class, so it's got good size. You landed, 2 safeties, 3 corners, but you've got Nick Reddish, who's your most recent recruit. He's about 5'11", 185. Your next shortest DB of the 5 is Kari Adams, who's about 6'2", 185. I mean, it certainly fits the Mike Mickens, I like long athletes type of thing. Joey O'Brien, 6'5". Aiden Pouncey's a big-time corner from Florida. Interesting story there, Sean. Obviously, Aiden Pouncey's older brother, Jordan Pouncey, committed to Notre Dame back in the 2017 class, but then flipped to Texas after the whole debacle of that 2016 season. He flips to there. He was part of Aiden coming to Notre Dame. He was on him on all his visits to Notre Dame. The family had certainly had a great deal of respect for the institution. And then, of course, as they got to know the coaches, they pulled off that upset. Joey O'Brien was a huge pickup, beating Oregon, Clemson, and Penn State for him. And Kari Adams is a top 50 national recruit. You're talking about landing not just, hey, this guy's got a high ceiling, and if they can coach him up, you're talking about landing guys with high ceilings, but also high floors. And ultimately, Sean, that's the difference between a 5-star and a guy with a high ceiling. It's the 5-star, the top 50 guy. He's got the higher floor. He can come in and help you out right away. And they certainly landed those type of players in Kari Adams and Joey O'Brien, but also the really high ceiling players like Aiden Pouncey, Chaz Smith, who was the first DB to commit in the class, who's kind of been overlooked because he's been in the class so long. He's another 6'2.5" cornerback, great hips, feet, and just having a great senior year so far. So I think Mike Mickens hit that one absolutely out of the park, and he's got at least 3 guys that can play corner. Really, everybody except Nick Reddish could play corner, even though they're not all being recruited to play corner. Joey O'Brien was originally recruited to play corner. Now I think they've transitioned more to safety because he keeps growing. When they offered him, he was 6'3". Now he's 6'5". Wow. So I think he's kind of getting to the point where he's outgrowing the position a little bit. But, if they needed him to, he could go play corner, especially in his zone defense. He could play corner and play it at a high level.
Man. That's Like you and I wish we had ever hit one of those growth spurts, huh?
I know, right? Seriously.
Never
If I was 6'3", I wouldn't have had all that college debt to pay off. I would have got a scholarship somewhere.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. 27 guys in this class. Do you think this becomes the norm going forward? This many guys, because of transfer portal and all that kind of stuff?
Not quite to this degree, Sean. Notre Dame's done a pretty good job with retention. I'm also curious to see if this new proposal about the transfer portal window just being one, I'm curious how that's going to impact roster sizes. It may not have any impact. It may impact a little bit. Notre Dame ultimately still wants to be a high school. Marcus Freeman's been very adamant about this, and they back it up with their actions, not just words from the head coach. They still want to be a high school driven program. I don't think we're going to see a lot of 17, 18 man classes because of, they're bringing in a bunch of portal guys, but I also don't think we're going to see 27, 28 every year either. And I think this class was sort of that final, let's overcome some depth problems class that they needed to do. So I think 22 to 25 is going to kind of be the norm, but you also can go over 85 now too, Sean. So it's like, well, yeah, we don't want to go to 27, but we added this stud, and this stud to the class, and we're not going to say no to them. There may be some years like that, but like 27 was kind of your need in this class. I don't think you're going to need 27 anymore. In the future, if you have a class this big, it's most likely going to be because they filled up their needs, but then there was just these really high talent players that they weren't going to say no to that they can take now because they don't have the same 85 scholarship limit they had in the past.
Why turn away talent if you don't have to? Great
exactly.
point.
You used to have to. I mean, you used to say, hey, look, man, we'd love to take you, but we literally are at 85 limit, and so we can't take you. Now it's 105. So it's a lot easier to take those guys.
So you mentioned the transfer portal change, and the NCAA, their oversight committee just voted on this yesterday to move to a 10-day portal window. Now it still has to be finalized, and from what I saw, the expectation is it's going to be finalized by the end of this month sometime. And it's a 10-day window that would be it would open on January 2nd, and then it's open for 10 days, and then that's it. They're getting rid of the spring portal. So I'm curious what you think about that.
Look, there's no perfect system for the portal. I mean, if we only went to a spring one, that's good. That would have some drawbacks. I don't like the two windows. The whole process to me is just broken. But if you're going to make a fix, I think this is actually a decent fix because you're moving it back to January instead of December. So you're eliminating the window for teams playing in the first couple rounds of the playoffs. You're still, I believe, going to have, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Sean, you're still going to have the extended window for the teams whose season goes longer because they make deeper runs in the playoffs.
Exactly.
And you still, graduates can still transfer whenever they want, which is how it should be. You should set rewards for, hey, you want to get this blessing, graduate. I think there should still be those rewards for that. And there's still the 30-day window for teams whose coach was fired, whose head coach was fired. So that still exists as well. So if you get your head coach fired, you have a longer window. So I like it. It's not ideal. We were debating on our show today, like, well, what about a guy like Steve Angeli? And Steve Angeli graduated in May, so he would have been able to transfer anyway. But let's say he wasn't. Well, that's the breaks. Now you have to make that decision in January. Do I want to go into this battle, or do I want to go somewhere where I'm going to have an easier path? And you make that decision in January. I look at it from a coach's standpoint. I want to know who my team is in January. And then now I know from now until the season, this is my squad. This is who we have. As opposed to after spring, these 6 guys leave because they lost battles and you have to add these 5 guys from the portal. I don't love that process. I want to know who my team is in January. Now let's go build this team. And I think it's also better for players. You also don't have guys jumping in the portal in January, finding a new team. Their agents go find them better deals, so then they jump back in the portal in May. It's a gross process, and you've gotten rid of a lot of that, hopefully, assuming that it gets passed and holds up to the lawsuits that will inevitably happen from lawyers looking to continue because that's who wants it, right? It's the agents. They want the 2 windows because that's just more opportunities for them to negotiate more money for their clients at the end of the day. So hopefully it holds up in court, but it's going to go to court, Sean, because you're already hearing agents complain about there's no player involvement. And okay, like that's fine. Players don't necessarily need to have a say in this.
Well, yeah,
because I don't,
we're
you know,
we're not at that point. There's no players union.
right. Nor in
This
this
point.
instance should they necessarily have a say in this. Like NFL players don't get to have a say in how the draft goes. There's certain things that they shouldn't have a say in.
Yeah.
And this is to me one of those things. You can still, and here's the thing: what about player movement? You can still transfer. You can transfer whenever you want. It's just now, if you transfer in the spring, you've got to sit out a year, which I think is how the process should be anyway. I've always advocated for that. I didn't like the old system completely, but I'm still an advocate for having a system where players have to sit out a year if they're not graduates when they transfer. But that's a different conversation for a different
I didn't
day.
like the old system either, but like given what it is drastically swung to over the last,
it was too rigid. The old system was too rigid.
Right.
I think you should have to sit out a year to transfer. I don't think you should lose a year though. I think you should still, if you graduate on time, you should get that year back so you can still redshirt and play 4 years. There's things you can do to make the system better. Give players windows. If you fire your coach, then they have an open system. I'd said this before, have contracts. If I'm promising you playing time or number 7 or whatever else, and I put that in your contract. And if we don't honor that, then you get a leave. Allow coaches to give waivers to players who we don't want him in our team anymore. We're okay with him going. I mean, there's a better system than what we had, but there's also a way better system than where we are right now, in my opinion. I'd even support the one time you can transfer now waiver, but if you're ever going to transfer again, you have to sit out a year. I would even take that over what we're dealing with right now.
Yep, I agree. All right, Bryan Driskell, IrishBreakdown.com. Always good to talk to you. It's been a while. I'll see you again.
Thanks for having me on.
Talk to you again
I
soon.
look forward to it.
See you, Bryan. We will take a timeout when we come back. I've got an interview coming up with Notre Dame women's basketball player Leah Macy, the freshman who injured her knee in high school at the end of last season. And then, of course, we've still got rapid fire. Jesse will be joining me in a little bit for that as well. That is when we return. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. Thanks to Bryan Driskell jumping in, talking a little Notre Dame football recruiting in the first segment of the show. We've got more Notre Dame football talk coming up in a little bit, rapid fire and more. Jesse Stiers is going to join me. The YouTube chat has just devolved into a string of Caddyshack quotes in here. It's easy to grin when your ship comes in and you've got the stock market beat. But anyway, we're going to talk a little Notre Dame women's basketball right now. I've got an interview coming up with Leah Macy. We're still a couple months away. They just released their schedule this week for the upcoming season. They'll play their exhibition game against Purdue Northwest on October 30th. They open the season November 5th against Fairleigh Dickinson. All home games in the month of November, 6 including the exhibition game and also including USC. They'll host USC, the Juju Watkins-less USC Women of Troy on November 21st, but they don't play their first home game or a road game rather until December 4th when they go to Ole Miss for the ACC SEC Challenge, and then they'll open ACC play at Florida State on December 7th. And then this is out of Notre Dame's control because it's ACC schedule. New Year's Day at Georgia Tech. New Year's Day games. That is not fun. That is not fun at all. But hey, you do what you got to do. Again, we've got more Notre Dame football talk coming up in a little bit, but let's catch up right now with Notre Dame women's basketball freshman Leah Macy. We are joined by freshman forward Leah Macy from the Notre Dame women's basketball team. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you sound like me. It's like the weather's changing and fall is coming right now.
Like yeah, it's been wild this week. Like I've been here, all summer, and so the weather was nice, and then like school starts, and like it's like an immediate change. So I was like, wow, like now I'm in like leggings and sweatshirts every day instead of shorts. So yeah, big change.
By the time we get our first football game next week, I'm sure it'll be back in the 80s or 90s. That's usually the way.
Or for like the concert tomorrow, like I was like, oh gosh, maybe I need a jacket. So yeah, it's gonna be a little chilly.
Are you and the team going to the concert?
Some of us are going, yeah. Some of us are going to the concert, which it's pretty cool that it's in the stadium and on campus. So it'll be fun. Kind of like I guess a pre-weekend before the football games start. So it'll be exciting.
Are you either a Shane Gillis or a country music fan in general?
I've actually seen Zach Bryan before, but I felt like it was just like a lot of people that I know, like some of my friends are also going that are on the basketball team. So I was like, yeah, I'll just go. I've never seen Shane before, but I've seen Zach Bryan before. So I was like, it won't hurt to go twice.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like you're a student at Notre Dame and you get an experience like that inside Notre Dame Stadium, right? So
I know, yeah, it's like, most colleges don't get that. So I think, I was like, yeah, definitely I'll go.
Why not? Well, you've been on campus now for a couple of months, and obviously the fall semester just got started. What's maybe the most kind of, along those lines, what's the most Notre Dame thing that you've done so far?
Ooh, I mean, I would just say like I love to go to the grotto quite often, like during the week. I know Kelly and I went to the Basilica Mass last Sunday, so I feel like just like that's a few Notre Dame things. Pretty busy with basketball most days, so some of the activities I don't get to do. But I definitely try to make time to go to the grotto a few times a week. On Sundays to start my week off right. So I would say, yeah, that's probably what I've done the most often.
Are you a football fan? Are you into football, or is it just kind of?
I am. I mean, I don't have any brothers, so I didn't really grow up, around football or anything. But yeah, I felt like it was always just sports is always on in my house at home. So it was football season, you kind of know it's fall and it was just nice. But I would always come on my visits up here and we would go to games. So I'm just kind of excited to maybe get into it and actually have a team to cheer for. I feel like, that's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, again, once you get into it, you're at Notre Dame. So it obviously becomes a big thing at this time of year. How many games did you go to? Do you remember the games you went to when you were being recruited?
I went to 2 games. I don't remember the specific games that I went to, but they did win both, which was nice. So it was a good environment. It was nice. And like our seats are so cool, for the men's and women's program. So it was always just so nice, to go on the field before as a recruit and then, get to sit like in the first 2 rows of the stadium. So it was always fun with, the girls on the team. So now to be a player, it's like, oh yeah, like, I get to go to like all of them. So
it's just there. Yeah. You're like right there by the tunnel when the players come out and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
it's so cool.
Exactly. Well, how's the start of your first semester in college gone so far?
So like I said, I've actually been here since June. I've only been home a few days and like family vacation. So I've been here for a little bit. Summer bridge program that I did was amazing. It was awesome. But definitely freshman semester, the actual school year is a lot different. I think, but the transition has been so easy, especially with the support I have, academically, athletically, and just the friendships I built this summer. So, finally like getting started with everybody on campus has been great. Definitely super busy, but the people that I'm around, make it fun every day. So yeah, it's been a great transition. I feel like, Coach Ivy's like, I don't even look at you as a freshman because like I feel like, you just transition so easily, and you've been here for a little bit. So yeah, everybody's just great.
I mean, I know that you were a National Honor Society student in high school
Yes.
and that kind of stuff, but on a scale of I can't stand being in class to I just love being in, like where do you fall on that scale of actually, being in the classroom and doing that stuff?
Oh, I'm definitely in the classroom. Especially with the academic advisors they make us. But I definitely want to. I don't want to be a person that, just comes to college for sports, because I think a big part of why I chose Notre Dame was that I could get best of both worlds here. The degree I'm going to get or earn here is something that other universities can't offer. And, on top of that, the athletic program here that, I'm a part of is just something special. But combining those two is such a dream. So I think, just taking advantage of both and making sure that like I get the most out of the classroom that I can. So being present is big for me.
So I believe it's a business analytics major.
Yeah,
Is that right?
that's what I plan on doing. Yeah, I want to go into law, so that's kind of my pre-law track that I'm thinking about taking.
Okay. So what's your course load look like right now? Are you taking anything specific to your major yet, or is it all just prereqs in first semester?
Yeah, so I actually got directly admitted into Mendoza, which some freshmen don't get directly admitted to. So thankfully, I get to take my math credit for calculus, and then I get to start my business foundation classes. So I'm taking my foundation of accounting this semester. Next semester will be one of the other business foundations. I believe there's 6 maybe that we have to complete. So thankfully, yeah, this first semester I kind of got to jump right in and get started with the business school, which is nice. So yeah, I like accounting. I've never done it before. I've never done anything like this. So it's different, but it definitely, gives me a feel for, maybe what I would like, what I don't like. So yeah, it's been good.
So is there a specific, like, particular kind of law that you're wanting to practice down the road then?
I think I want to go into sports law. I think,
Okay.
Obviously with like the agents nowadays, like agency signing kids, and NIL, I think it's just a huge, part of law now. And I think being in sports and kind of being a part of that, I think I would have a little different, perspective on it. And I still want to be involved. I definitely want to play pro after college. But I know the ball is going to stop bouncing. So I think still being involved, I think dropping the sport or like sports at all would be really difficult. So trying to stay involved in any way.
Sure. On down the road. Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you had that knee injury at the end of your high school season.
Yeah.
So where are you, I guess, right now after going through all that?
Yeah, I think definitely there's no timeline on me. I'm gonna be 7 months here in a few days, but I had a few other things I had to go through before or after my initial surgery. So I think right now just taking the time to build strength is huge. Coming back from multi-ligament injuries, the one that I'm facing. So I think just being in the weight room with Clive every day has been big for me. Our trainer Ann she's helped me the past couple months, so much. So them too, just the support that I'm getting from them and they've always said there's no pressure on you to get back right now. There's no time, no rush. So yeah, I'm kind of just taking it day by day.
Are you pretty much pain free right now?
Yeah. Yeah, just getting, movements back. Like I said, with, you have to get your quad, and your hamstring back. So that takes
Yeah.
time. You don't really realize, how many muscles you use, before like going through an injury like this, I guess. So, it's just like so many details and little things that it's just patience and time. So yeah, just I guess just being present, like I said again, and the support that everybody has given me in the program. I've never felt weight on me to, get back or pressure, which is really nice.
I think that patience that you talk about has got to be like the toughest thing for you, because again,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you said you feel pain free, and maybe you get in a rush to feel like, oh, I could just do this now.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
like you said, working with the strength staff and the
Yeah.
athletic training staff, that's got to be key for you to
Mhm.
kind of tamp the brakes every now and then, huh?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely, like, surround yourself with people, who want what's best for you. Before this, I think I was a really impatient person. So this, journey has definitely taught me that patience is key, which I think would be a life lesson, for my whole life and, the rest of my life. So yeah, definitely been a great lesson to take out of this.
So, you talked about that summer bridge program when you came to
Yeah.
campus, and obviously, going to class, but you're also on campus and working out with the team and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So, how much like actual back, because we would see you in some of those videos with the team, that they put out on social media and stuff like that. How much were you actually able to do on the court then, and how much are you actually, on the court being able to do stuff now?
Yeah, when I first got here in the summer, yeah, I could do some form shooting. Wasn't, able to do anything on the court besides that. Full weight room. I'm pretty much still the same right now. A few different changes. I've gotten stronger over the past few months. From the time I got here till now, the progress that I've made, has been insane and crazy. So, I'm so thankful for that. I think, just that comes from hard work, and, just being committed. So just staying like grounded in that, and continuing to do that, it's easy to, feel like, I want to do something, like I want to be out there, and I really do. But I just know that like I just need to take my time. So yeah, I'm in the weight room right now.
Are you wearing, like, when you're doing that stuff, are you wearing the brace? Not in the weight room, but like basketball stuff, are you still like brace and stuff like that, or
Yeah, no, I haven't been braced, since since surgery,
wow.
before, like, some walking and stuff. But yeah, ever since I started lifting, no brace, just getting stronger on your own, just realizing that like, before I hurt myself, I obviously was never in a brace. So coming back, feeling confident in that and trusting, that my work, is going to get me back to where I was. I think, the brace is obviously like can be, I guess, a level of like trust for some people.
Uh-huh.
But I just want to make sure that, I trust myself, realizing I don't need one.
So I know you said no timeline. Are you hopeful you're going to be able to play this season? Is it your goal to play this season, or is everything just sort of wait and see what happens right now?
Yeah, I would say, I would definitely love to play. But that's like, Coach Ivy has told me that, that's the last thing right now that I need to think about. Just because that can, mentally, mess you up.
Right.
Thinking about stuff like that, you won't focus on where you're at. So that's kind of in the back of my mind, but the last thing that I try to think about, just because I want to, I've said a million times, like be present, just like focusing on where I am and making the growth, in the, what work that I'm doing for the day, giving 110% to that workout, or that lift that I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, try not to think about it right now.
Are there any people, former players, like that maybe you've leaned on for advice, who have gone through this kind of thing? Have you had that kind of resource?
Yeah, I would say, Darren Mabry reached out to me pretty early in the process,
Okay.
because I was able to come up here and actually get my surgery, with the team surgeon. So I was still 4 months away from graduating high school, but they gave me
Yeah.
the opportunity to come up here, and I'm so grateful for that. But she reached out because obviously she went through a similar thing, and you don't know how this process is until you experience it. And so I would definitely, that meant a lot to me. But Coach Ivy and Coach Owens have been through this stuff as players themselves.
True.
And unfortunately, it's common in women's basketball. But I've definitely leaned on them, especially Coach Ivy, just because she has been through it, and she's seen it as a coach as well. So she comes and sits in my lifts with me, and just gives me like kind words. So it's nice.
She sits in your lift. She's not out there lifting with you.
No, she does. She does. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She does.
All right. How would you, for like when we do get to see you again in the future, how would you describe yourself, your game, to someone who hasn't been able to see you play yet?
Yeah, definitely fundamental, versatile, and I would say physicality are three words to describe it. I'm a very fundamental. I have a lot of fundamentals. Let me just say that. I was probably trying to make up a word, but very grounded, like in the basics of basketball. I think that's a big part of my game. And then I can play inside or out. Yeah. Which I think, can get you on the floor pretty easily. And Coach Ivy loved that about my game. Another thing is, physicality. I don't shy away from being physical with, defenders or on defense. So yeah, big parts of my games.
You've got a younger sister, Lauren, who plays basketball as well. How competitive are you two with each other?
Yeah, we're really close. Me and Lauren, we're really, really close. She doesn't love basketball as much as I do, but I think she works out with me so much, so she's grown her game so much, and we're just competitive people. So I think the workouts, she pushes me and I push her. I would say I like to push her buttons quite often, so it might get a little chippy, but yeah, we just like to push each other.
And you two played AAU basketball together the last few years as well, right? Like what was it like kind of going through that, having your sister there kind of along the way?
Yeah, I would say besides AAU, like high school, we got to play 2 seasons together. So just being out there with her, she just working out all the time, she kind of knew me and I knew her. And so it was kind of like such a relationship that it was, you didn't have to speak about, unspoken. And I think defenders try to key on me so much, and she would get loose and she'd have big games with like 26 30 points, and I would just say I was always her biggest cheerleader. She cheers for me so much, and I'm so grateful for that. So just being there for her in those moments, and I'm so proud of her. So yeah, she works really hard.
I mean, it takes a lot of work, whether it's AAU or high school or whatever, to get to the point where you are right now, to have an opportunity, to play at a place like Notre Dame. Is there anyone maybe in particular that you get your work ethic from?
Yeah, I would say my papa. He definitely showed me what hard work was from a young age. He started his own business and has, done very well from that business. So I think, he just showed me that if you just work hard for what you want, you can make something out of it. So sports, growing up was always a big part of my life. I played softball as well, which I also got that from him. So he just showed me, just work hard for what you want. And my family always uses the quote that like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I was obviously given the gift of talent, but I think hard work has taken me farther than talent ever has. So just staying with that quote, through my college years and my college career, and, my career further down, after college, I just think, my papa definitely showed me what hard work was.
Yeah. Your papa, is that your grandpa? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my
All right. Everyone's got different names, nicknames for their grandparents and stuff like that.
Yeah, he likes papa, but my grandpa.
All right. Awesome. Leah Macy, one of the newest members of the Notre Dame women's basketball team, on the road to recovery, and we wish you well and look forward to seeing you very soon, and hopefully out there back on the court very soon.
Thank you guys.
Absolutely. That is Leah Macy. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, Jesse's going to join me. We've got rapid fire coming up, some Notre Dame football talk, the chat staying lively on the YouTube side. Or don't forget, you can always watch this show on either YouTube channel, Irish Breakdown or Sports Radio WSBT. More coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down hour number 1 of the show, Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Jesse Stiers is here. He's decked out in Cowboys gear. I was wondering what your attire would be tonight after last night's game.
Good to see you.
You
It was a
too.
late night.
Whew, man.
I didn't sleep.
Nothing like
very
a
well.
lightning delay to make it even later night, huh?
No, I know. I didn't sleep well. Slept through my 5:30 alarm. That didn't happen this morning. So stayed home, worked from home. That was a real nice gift. I just really didn't want to do much. That game took a lot out of me. It was a great game. It just took a lot out of me, though.
I've been dragging all day after my experience last weekend trying to get to Miami and in Miami, and then late last night. I think it was the Cowboys' second to last possession. I nodded off for a minute, and then you texted me, and I felt my hand vibrate, and it kind of jarred me awake. It was right. Yeah, it was when they punted, and then the Eagles got the ball back, and then, I did think it was noteworthy last night. You brought this up. Miles Sanders fumbled in a big spot last night for the Cowboys. Guess what? Never got back in the game after that.
Never touched the ball again.
Nope. Never got back in the game after that. Funny how coaches have standards that they uphold with that kind of stuff, huh?
Fumbling, not high on running back coaches' things that you should do.
No, not high on the list of priorities at all, as it turns out. In the YouTube chat, ND Forever 72, I recorded that interview with Leah Macy when I was home earlier today. So it's like the old, my man cave den, whatever it is that you want to call it, backdrop. There is a big picture of a football player wearing number 25 on that wall. And yes, indeed, that is Rocket Ismail that is in that photo. I got that. I can't remember exactly how I ended up with it, but it is autographed by Rocket Ismail. And when we moved from a little bit bigger house to a smaller house, I originally had it boxed up for probably the first couple years we lived there. And I was digging through some stuff, and I'm like, man, I got all this wall space. It's time for this sucker to go back up on the wall. You can't keep an autographed Rocket photo sitting in a closet someplace. So, yeah, that is up there on the wall.
You have a good amount of memorabilia.
I do.
In that room.
I do. Fortunate to accrue some over the years in that room, and then in the other room, like our side TV room, when the College Football Hall of Fame used to be here, they would have me down when they would do induction weekend. That they would play that little flag football game. I'm sure you remember it, out on the little gridiron that they had in front of the old Hall of Fame. They would have me like MC, kind of, do a little announcing of the flag football game and stuff like that. And my payment was they would have, that year's class autograph a football, and they would give me the football with all the autographs on there. So that's kind of cool. So I've got those footballs in another room that are pretty cool. So, yeah.
I like the Muhammad Ali.
Yes. Met Ali back in the day. That's right. That was pretty cool as well. Really cool experience. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it is rapid fire time. Jesse and I will juice ourselves up. We will get our energy through the roof as we sprint to the finish line of this week. We'll be done before 6:40 p.m. tonight. So rapid fire coming up, hour 2, Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It is hour 2 of Budweiser's weekday sports beat, and that can mean only one thing. Rapid fire time. Jesse, are you ready for it?
There's nothing more exciting than a Friday night rapid fire.
I mean, heading right into the weekend. What more could you ask for? I just don't know. Chiefs, Chargers tonight, by the way. I had forgotten that they were playing that game down in Brazil tonight. And if you are looking for that game, I'll just give you this public service announcement right now. It is a YouTube-only broadcast. So they are streaming it on YouTube. That's where you can find that game. So there you go. Don't say I didn't do anything for you.
Do you have YouTube?
I do. And I've got
because you have the ticket.
Right. So I've got it all in the app installed on the TV and the whole thing. So 8:00 tonight, Chiefs Chargers, another NFL game going on this evening. Jack Cohn was Notre Dame's last 3,000-yard passer, Jesse. That was in 2021. It has been 4 years. He had 3,150 yards that season. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence CJ Carr at least matches that number this season?
I'm going to go a strong 7 out of 10. When I first kind of looked at it, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go to 8 out of 10, an even stronger 8 out of 10 here. I first looked at it and I was kind of like, I'm a little bit scared of that number. But then you kind of break it down. I always go by regular season. And, I think that's the most fair way to look at this. That means 250 yards passing per game. I think he had somewhere around 220 against a pretty talented Miami defense in a pretty tough environment in the rain on the road to start the season. I like what I saw out of him. I think that the defenses are obviously going to be more favorable as they go, into the season here. So he can maybe rack up some better numbers here and there. So I'm pretty confident that he can average 250 yards a game with his arm ability.
It's interesting because the most yards Riley Leonard passed for last year. Do you remember which game it was by any chance off the top of your head? I won't put you too far on the spot. I'll just let you guess.
Was it regular season or playoffs?
Playoffs.
Okay. It was IU.
It was Ohio State in the national championship game, 255 yards. His next best was 229 against Stanford. Now, we know the obvious, Riley Leonard with the passing and the whole thing. He only had a little over 2,800 yards. Even Sam Hartman, though, I think he's got to be the biggest disappointment 2 years ago.
He was supposed to be a gunslinger.
Yeah, not even getting to 2,700 passing yards. That was just weird. He only had one 300-yard game that year, and that was against Central Michigan. But when CJ Carr comes out 221 in his debut, that doesn't mean that he's, just going to light everybody up with his arm. I think we are still, curious to see what that running game is going to look like, the running game that never materialized. But, 221, that's a little more than 2,600 right there if he averages that the rest of the year. And then, like you said, 30 more yards will get you to that number. So I think I'm a strong 7.5. I'm not quite as confident as you, but I'm at a strong 7.5 that CJ Carr gets to 3,150 yards, which is the number we were talking about. Jack Cohn's season in 2021, the last 3,000-yard season. There are a couple that you would expect him to just, completely light things up. And then it's a question of how long does he stay in the game and, all those kind of things. But I think he's going to have at least a couple 300-yard passing games, and then you can, go averages after that. So
we're pretty much in the same ballpark then.
I think so. Jeremiah Love had 14 total touches against Miami, 10 rushing, 4 receiving. What's the minimum number of touches J Love needs in a game for the Irish to be successful?
This was interesting because I was kind of in the camp of it felt like Jeremiah Love didn't get the ball enough. But then when you go back and look at it, I was looking at the overall box score. Notre Dame ran 28 rushing attempts and 30 pass attempts, so 58 combined plays. Jeremiah Love had 14 of those 58. That's roughly 25% of the snap share that Jeremiah Love touched the ball. 1 in 4 plays, Jeremiah Love was going to touch the ball in offense. I think if you said that going into that game, And going into the season, a lot of people would be comfortable with that ratio. Maybe you want it to be closer to a third, but I mean, for running 58 plays and him touching the ball 14 times, I don't think that's totally egregious. I just think that the plays could have maybe been used more situationally when you called them, the sequence in which you called them, that sort of stuff.
They never made an effort early to try to get him more involved in the game plan.
And I think also you could maybe look at, yes, you want him to be able to catch the ball, but I'd like to maybe see a few more rushing attempts. I think that would maybe be kind of my overall critique. I looked up, Saquon Barkley, the average amount of times he runs the ball, 17 times in the NFL. I'm cool if that's Jeremiah Love's total number, because I know that he doesn't want to, be at an NFL kind of workload quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be maybe 15 rushes per game in that ballpark, maybe 2 to 3 catches per game to be in that combined, 17, 18. And so really, when I look at Miami, it's just Notre Dame had some bad drives. They had some bad, I think, sequences where they just didn't call the right kind of cadence of run pass type play calling. But really, I'm only needing maybe 3-4 more touches out of Jeremiah Love. So to answer the original question, I think I'm going to be around like the 17 range, but it's not like they were far off from the mark.
No, again, it's what's the game plan look like? And they're obviously, again, with all the RPOs, there was no real plan to get Jeremiah Love involved in the game. And that's just that's egregious if you're not going to do that. Now Jadarian Price obviously had his opportunity and he made the most of it. And Price does factor in that as well. They're not alternating those two guys, at least in the first game. They didn't alternate their snaps quite as much as last year. So Love was on the field quite a bit. They just weren't giving him the football. And so I think that his rushing carries as a starting point, you need to plan on he is going to run the ball at least 15 times with the thought that Jadarian Price is going to get somewhere between probably 12 to 15 or 16 carries of his own, which puts you up around 30 total between them. But then when you factor in the receiving aspect of it, I think that 4 is a good number. But again, it's also not all the passes need to be behind the line of scrimmage. You need to find ways to get him more everyone, that's got to be the plan for the offense. But so I think Love total touches, he needs to be around 20 per game with a starting point of 15 carries. Total touches around 20 per game. I think he's your best player on offense. He needs to the game plan needs to be more factored around him. And then if you need to adjust off that and make him a decoy, you don't need to start off with Jeremiah Love being a decoy. If you want to adjust off that, with him being a decoy, and then you do other things, that's fine. But I think that the mindset needs to be, we need to get him the ball around 20 times total per game.
That's interesting because, I think on average, college offenses run about 60 to 70 plays per game. And so you ideally want it to be a pretty 50-50 split, right? So on the low end of that, let's just say 60 games or 60 plays are run in a game. You want 30 passes and 30 runs. And then you split that in half. You'd want Price at 15 and Love at 15, kind of like what you were saying. And then you get Love, 3-4 passes, and it gets up to that right around that 20 touch mark. But that ratio then goes to, 20 touches and 60 overall snaps. And so you're leaning more towards kind of like that 1/3 share, or he per new set of downs, Jeremiah Love needs to touch the ball one time is kind of where you're at. First, second, third down, Jeremiah Love should be seeing the ball at least one time in those 3 plays.
Yes, exactly. Now, again, that needs to be the mindset going in. That doesn't mean it's always going to turn out to be that many, based on how the game goes. Does it turn out lopsided? All those different kind of things. But the bottom line is with Price with Love, and you can also factor Price into this, just like with the 30-yard run that Price has. The more you get Jeremiah Love the football, the greater odds you have that at least one of those is going to turn into an explosive play. So again, and as you get those, that decreases, maybe the chance that you need to do that, but it also shifts the game plan of the defense and how they need to defend him, and that opens up other things you can do. But I think that it just starts with the idea that you're going to get your best playmaker the football as many times as possible.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Salty Virginia Peanuts. We were talking about that Chiefs-Chargers game on YouTube tonight. He asks if it's on the YouTube Prime service or just YouTube. It is actually just YouTube. Like if you go to YouTube and you look for the NFL channel, you will see the Chiefs-Chargers game in there. It was, I think it was one of those, like if you ever, obviously a lot of our people watch the YouTube channels, but it was just sitting in there earlier as an upcoming game. So I think I've got an alert for it so that I don't forget later tonight. But yeah, streaming on the regular YouTube tonight, which is interesting. First time they've ever done that, an NFL game on YouTube. I think I Am Tenzin, I'm the son of Hank said something about two crappy teams. I mean, it's only the 3-time defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs who are in there. Total garbage team.
Total garbage.
Yeah.
Why waste your time? I just can't believe they're actually doing it in Brazil. I forgot that there was a game tonight, honestly.
I did too.
The NFL is definitely going to this spread as many games and days as we can. So I'm not surprised, but for some reason I did forget.
I saw that next year, I think it's next year, they're not going to let them do a Friday game because it has something to do with where Labor Day falls and like the different, because of the high school rules and Fridays and stuff like that. So they're going to have to sit it out, I guess, next year for the Friday game.
Sounds like a lot of thinking went into that.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Like if the NFL had its way, they would be on.
They'd be like the MAC.
Yeah. I'm honestly surprised they haven't figured out a way to do a Tuesday game at this point.
Same.
Practically do everything else. Chase Claypool was Notre Dame's last 1,000-yard wide receiver. That was in 2019. Okay, so we got a chance to see this team in action, obviously, last week. Scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence the Fighting Irish will have a receiver hit that mark this season, 1,000 yards?
I have to put this at a lonely 3. I am not very optimistic in this, and I don't think that has anything to say about any one receiver particularly at Notre Dame. I just think that the way the offense is kind of run, the overall philosophy, it's any given guy's week. I don't think that they have someone who's going in every week where we're going to feed him, like for example, Dallas Cowboys targeted CeeDee Lamb 13 times last night. Mm-hmm. That ain't happening anywhere on Notre Dame. Like it's Will Pauling could have a game. Faison could have a game. Greathouse could have a game. Malachi Fields could have a game. Micah Gilbert, he's got the receiving touchdown right now. He could have a game. Sure. There's just too many options, I feel like, to say that this one guy is going to, at this rate, have to average almost 100 yards per game. It's just Notre Dame doesn't have that bona fide guy in a true kind of aerial raid passing attack where it's just going to happen. And so I don't think it's anything to feel bad about, to get upset about. I think CJ Carr is going to do a good job of throwing the ball and distributing the ball and just throwing it to who's open, not specifically looking for, one person out there. So,
and there's nothing wrong with that if that happens, but like you do have a go-to guy. This year they do have a true go-to guy, and his name is Malachi Fields. Sorry, Salty Virginia Peanuts, but it's just true. His name is Malachi Fields. He's their go-to guy, and he showed why last week between the throw from CJ Carr and that beautiful catch that Malachi Fields made. Like, it feels to me like if there's going to be a guy, it's going to end up being Malachi Fields because of that, because I do think that this does become a more downfield offense, and that's going to be one of the big questions from game 1 to game 2 is the evolution and what you're able to let CJ Carr do, what you're more willing to let CJ Carr do in game 2 at home compared to game 1. So My confidence that they have a 1,000-yard receiver this year is probably a 3. But again, like I don't think it will be the worst thing in the world with those 4 guys at the top of the food chain: Fields, Faison, Pauling, who really we saw nothing out of in terms of being a receiver last week. Ditto Jaden Greathouse. But I think those 4 guys are all going to end up being pretty productive in this offense this season.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I just think it'll be almost kind of game dependent. I think we'll see some big games out of some of these guys. I just don't think we'll consistently see a guy go for 100 yards every single game. And sorry, I forgot to even include Eli Raritan, who was the leading receiver. Or sorry, I guess you could call it leading receiver. He had the most.
The leading receiver, just not a wide receiver.
Correct. Yeah. But it's just, again, another option that you're going to throw in there, right? And then, let's not forget, they want to throw the ball to Jeremiah Love 4 to 5 times a game. That takes away targets and receptions and yards. Just overall kind of, we were just talking about snap share, like Jeremiah Love is going to see 15 to 20 snaps. Obviously, that means he's going to get closer to more of these milestones. Greathouse, Malachi Fields, they're just not going to see that. They're maybe going to see, 5, 6, 7 maybe maximum targets per game. And it's not like you said, it's not like we're seeing these deep balls down the field or Carr ripping the seams necessarily yet. But, 5 targets and you maybe catch three of those for 10, 15 yards. That's 60 yards, 70 yards. And that's okay, and I think that's what it's going to be with them. They just have to be a really good unit at the end of the day.
Exactly. Because look, we talked about whether or not CJ Carr would get to 3,100 yards. And if he gets there, again, like those 4 guys, if those 4 all get 500 yards each, that's 2,000 yards right there. If Eli Raritan is somewhere around 500, that gets you to 25. I don't think Jeremiah Love is going to be in the 500 range, but like that other 500 or so gets distributed amongst some other guys. I think that's very reasonable. It'd be nice to have like that dude finally get it, but it just, I don't know. Again, we'll see how this offense continues to evolve over the course of the season, because I do, in a similar but different way from Riley Leonard last year, I do think that the offense that we're going to see and what we're seeing Mike Denbrock have the quarterback do is going to look pretty different about a month and a half from now compared to what we saw last week against Miami. Take our final timeout. More rapid fire questions as we finish things up tonight. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire, along with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. I saw a comment over here in the YouTube chat just for you, Jesse. I don't know if you saw this. Bobby O'Shea says, Jesse, Boise State's on tonight at 9 o'clock. Just thought you might want to watch them once this year.
I watched them last week. Thank you very much.
Bobby's not going to let up on you. He's got a month to give it to you as hard as he can. So, all right, we've got just a few minutes to go here. Big change coming to college football potentially if it is finalized, which it is expected to be. NCAA's FBS Oversight Committee voted to go to a single 10-day transfer portal that'll open on January 2nd, which is the day after the college football playoff quarterfinals. It will also eliminate the spring portal window. Do you buy or sell this move, Jess?
I feel like when we, over the offseason had a lot of time, and this was the topic that kind of came up a few times, I was pretty adamant that this is what I wanted, and I'm going to continue and stand on that because I think this is the most realistic scenario for players, for coaches, and I don't like the concept of basically being able to go into the portal and then you could go into the portal twice before a season actually starts. I'm pretty sure, right? So I'm really glad that this
go in December, pull yourself out, and then go back in the spring if you wanted to.
Right. So it's just, if you truly are set on going somewhere and the opportunity and that sort of thing, I think this is the right thing. I think with NIL, this also makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it.
Salty asks in the YouTube chat if players that are still in the playoffs get a late portal access as they did this year. Yes, they will. So that will still continue to be a thing. So even though the window is only going to be 10 days, and what this does obviously is give the players a chance to go into the portal and then find a new team, find a new school by the time the spring semester opens at the new school that they go to. But at the same time, players who are in the college football playoff, teams playing in the playoff, they can finish that out, not have to go into the portal like Prabula did, the now Missouri quarterback who will play against Kansas tomorrow. When he transferred from Penn State last year, he left right after the season ended before the team even went into the playoff. But you will be able to do that. Coaches wanted to get it out of December because there's so much going on in December. You've got the signing classes. Obviously, you're going to have the coaching carousel going on, and you've also got teams that are preparing both for bowl games and the bigger games, the college football playoff. So it makes sense getting it out of there. And I think that I think it's good to have just one window. Do away with the spring portal window. So I'm in on this. I buy it. Fill in the blank. It's blank that according to a report by ESPN, Bill Belichick has banned New England Patriots scouts and staff from all North Carolina football facilities. Scouts from two other NFL teams also say that under Belichick, the Tar Heels offer more limited access in general to scouts than other schools do.
So I'm going to give two fill in the blanks, one for the first part about the Patriots and one for the second part, because I think it's a little bit hard to find one for each. I think it's comically petty that he doesn't allow the Patriot staff in there. Like that's just, it's just like, yeah, okay. Like we get it, you guys don't like each other. But I can't say the same for the second part. And I think the second part is just utter stupidness. Because it's a disservice to the players. You should not be controlling who is coming in and out, because who are you as Bill Belichick as this in-between crossroads where these kids need as much exposure as possible to get to the NFL?
Yeah, and that's ultimately who's going to pay the price in this. You are hurting your players by not letting scouts have access to watching them. And apparently, they're only letting scouts watch the first 3 periods of practice, which is kind of like what Notre Dame with the media here, but like we're talking NFL scouts, ultimately, like the stuff with the depth chart, that was just childish and immature and still is. I would hope that he changes that going forward. All you're going to do is keep good players away if they find out that you're not letting, like when they came in, Belichick and all of his guys, Michael Lombardi, his general manager, they kept saying, well, we're the next NFL team, like we run this like an NFL organization. Well, if the players, the recruits that you're going after find out that you're not letting NFL scouts in to see them at practice, they're just going to go someplace else. So this is just plain stupid is what it is on Belichick's part. Okay, we've got just a few minutes to go. Eagles, Cowboys, thoughts from last night. Spit free, if you will.
So a few minutes left. I also want to get to the last question, so I'm not going to belabor some of this stuff because I do think there's some good college games to talk about. But going into this game, I never thought, or not even this game, this season. You look at the schedule and you always say, okay, here's where I think wins and losses are going to come and what the overall record is going to be, right? I never thought the Cowboys were going to go into Philadelphia and win this football game, like with confidence. Like always the fan of me is like, okay, yeah, the Cowboys are going to go in and there's going to be a chance, right? But realistically, that's a loss you concede, right? And they always do lose in Philadelphia, and they usually get it back at home in Dallas. But I was most encouraged by it just looked like a different football team. It looked like everyone was out there on the same page. Everyone wanted to kind of be there for one another. And they just played as a true football team. There was lack of the stupid penalties, pre-snap penalties. They only had 4 penalties the entire game. It looked like they were playing physical in the trenches. And Dak played great, outside of a couple mistakes, they had a shot to win that game.
Edit yourself here. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. They felt like a more physical and disciplined football team, the Cowboys did. Now, Jim Rome is on this station before when I get here and I'm getting ready for my show. And he was saying the Cowboys defense looks slow, which seems like an odd statement considering A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith just had a handful of catches between them. I mean, like they shut them down with 2 guys, Bland and Diggs, who have both, come back from major injuries this year. Like they kept those guys in check all night. And all we've heard all offseason is the greatness of the Philadelphia Eagles and this great roster they have and this great offense and everything else. Yet the Dallas Cowboys played toe-to-toe with them. I realize they've got some issues at linebacker, but overall, like lack of speed was not something that I would have said with the Cowboys after watching last night's game.
No.
That was a bad take.
I think a fumble and some drops is what I would take away from last night's game.
Yep. By the way, you're very right, Joe. I think it was Bobby last night who said the Eagles are going to win by 3 touchdowns. We guaranteed we would buy him 4 dozen. Each of us, 4 dozen total. If they won by 3 touchdowns, they barely won by a little bit more than 3 points. So take that. They covered. We said we liked that 8.5 that the Cowboys were getting too. All right, we got about a minute and a half here. Don't have quite the same number of marquee games this weekend as last weekend. No Notre Dame playing, obviously, this weekend. Is there a game or two that you're most interested college football-wise?
Yeah, I think the most obvious is Michigan and Oklahoma, so I'm going to throw that one out. Give me Kansas and Missouri. 2 teams very close to each other, rivalry. Kansas is 2-0. Missouri's 1-0. Missouri's had more recent higher success. I finally think that this is Jalen Daniels' season. Just stay healthy, and I think the Jayhawks can stay hot.
I've taught you well. Border War coming back. First time in 14 years they've played it. And as John Kristofik says, this should be a good game earlier in the day, too. A little matinee, Michigan, Oklahoma earlier in the day. Those are the 2 games I'm most interested in. Kansas, Missouri, Michigan, Oklahoma. Should be a fun weekend. All right. We'll wrap it up with that. Everyone enjoy your Notre Dame free weekend and just be ready to start, hammering everybody about offensive line and defenses and everything else next week when we get back. We'll
back to game week.
That's right. We got a Marcus Freeman press conference on Monday. All right. South Bend Cubs baseball coming up next. Brendan King, Tyler Reedy done a great job all season long as their season winds down this weekend. We'll wrap it up. Talk to you next week. Jess Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.